All right, let's get this show on the road, Bruce.
All right, I just broadcast. Doesn't look like any attendees are here, but I'll go over the protocol as normal. So this is the August 3rd regular Conservation Commission meeting. The chair is Larry Dunn. If anyone is listening and would like to speak during the public communications portion of the meeting, you can raise your hand and the chairman will admit you one at a time. Other than that, Larry, you can take the roll call and we can start.
All right, roll call. Larry Dunn.
Michelle Fitzpatrick.
Kristen Distante.
There was Tom and Bray. God, did both. So we're there. We're one short, but we certainly have a quorum. All right. First item of business is approval of minutes. I read through the one in there. One of the questions I had was the review of open space criteria for Groton. I thought we agreed on the text aspect of it, and we left open for people to review and comment on the calculations or the weightings. Did I remember that incorrectly?
I have a point of order. You should put them before you start discussing it. You should be having a motion to and a second. And I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second. I was going to do the same thing, Tom.
Now you can have a discussion.
Now we can have the discussion.
All right, what I said.
What did you say?
I said that I thought we made more progress on the criteria than is reflected in the minutes.
I thought we agreed to do. I thought we agreed at the meeting to do it at the special meeting. This was Michelle.
And I agree that that's what's reflected in the minutes, because the minutes are just from the July meeting, the July 6th meeting, and not from the special meeting we had.
Oh, okay. All right. So we took it up at the special meeting then. Yes. Okay. All right. That's okay. I don't have anything else. Michelle?
I do. It's Michelle. So under the report of chairman, Larry talked to us about 3 or 4 or 5 different topics, and only one is under there. So shouldn't we at least have a sentence about each of the other things that Larry reported on?
Let me see. All I have right now is it says 4 new applications of potential candidates. Let me see.
Right, and he had the one guy that was complaining, I think, about the way he evaluated the piece of property. There was like at least 2 or 3 other things that Larry reported to us.
Let me. I brought up my notes.
Yeah, I have notes here too.
One was on Knowing School, which we covered under a different topic. I mentioned that the COW approved the transfer of the 1,300 square feet from the town back to Brian Edmonds with a commitment to provide access to the walkway from his property. That's the one by the firehouse. I mentioned we got our first Freedom of Information Act request. And I mentioned that we had an offer from Becky Carlson in regarding to providing a media piece. I kind of translated that to say based upon the open space plan. The others we discussed under other topics. So those are the ones I think weren't captured.
So this is Michelle for future reference, maybe to help Bruce. Larry, if you could send Bruce an email with the list of stuff you tell us, so you can put it in the minutes that way, rather than trying to capture it while you're talking.
Usually I don't have that much. So.
Well, when you do.
Okay,
Just a suggestion.
okay.
I also have in my notes NERR request. Larry, do you remember what that was?
Yeah, that was a, hold on, let me bring it back up again. That was the, let's see, National Estuarian Research Reserve. And there was a request for participation. I think, Tom, you were copied on that. Let me,
Yeah, that's Tom Olson. I was aware of that. I submitted an information package that I received through GOSA back to you, Larry, and then I also use that information to update the plan.
yeah, I do believe, give me 1 second, that there's a, okay, I'm now getting off another topic. I do have a minor update on that because there's a meeting coming up, but I'll wait off until we get off the minute. So that was introduced as a result of, was it Joan? Or I'm trying to remember what the GOSA, I guess, sent that to us.
Yes.
Yep. So that's what that was, Bruce.
So did you think, should we table the minutes and let you, Larry and Bruce, make sure that Bruce caught the other stuff correctly and then we'll approve them at the next meeting? Or do you want to try to figure it out now?
Bruce,
Well, technically you've got a motion on the table. If you want to table it, we can table it, or I can withdraw it. And we can just skip over this. It'd be a lot easier just to withdraw and skip over.
I'm good with that as a seconder.
Okay? So the motion's
Okay.
withdrawn. And we'll defer approval of the minutes until they're corrected and submitted with the next for the next meeting.
Bruce,
all right, there's motion on the table. Any discussion on that?
I'll
Well, the
second.
motion's withdrawn, so I think you don't do anything else.
You have to
Well,
don't do anything.
Well, we do still have to address the fact that there's a minutes of meeting, and if we're agreeing to do it at the next meeting.
You would make a motion to vote to carry it to the next meeting.
Right.
Yeah. And Bray, I will second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Ann, are you logged in yet?
Oh, there she is.
Yes, I am on my phone. I have computer internet issues.
All right, let's log her as abstaining. We've got enough to pass the motion to basically delay the minutes of meeting approval. Ann. Okay.
Okay.
So the next one is public communications. So I've got 2 letters, public communications. There's no one here. One was a GCA request on the Noank property. And basically, there was a request that we participate in tomorrow's town meeting on it. Let's see, what did I do with that?
Larry, what are we seeing?
His thumb.
Oh, the thumb.
Oh, sorry. I had
His
to,
lawn with his fingernails, under his fingernails.
I had to put the laptop down so I got a second screen. So that's, geez, you guys are terrible.
Looks like a bandage, or I could figure out what I was looking at.
So what did I do with that letter? So I guess we can delay that until we get to Noank on the menu. or on the agenda. So the other item we got was, or that I saw, was on the forest subgroup publication, which was forwarded. I think that did that get forwarded, then Tom, you then forwarded it to me.
What's the subject?
That was on the forest subgroup.
Forest or four?
Forest.
Okay.
Trees.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So I think that was more for information, and I think that was, oh yeah, and then it was forwarded to you for the group to look at, for the text committee to look at, as it had some information and background information on forestry. So I think I forwarded that to you for the text team.
This is Tom Olson. The text team reviewed it as part of our, and it was updated in the version that is submitted for review for later today. So we've included any comments from that.
All right, that was the two I got, and I said we'll wait until we get the no ink to discuss whether we're going to support the Groton advocacy request on that. Did anyone else get public communication? Bruce, anything else came to you?
I did not receive anything.
All right.
Tom Olson.
Larry, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Last month we had received a letter from a concerned citizen about extra cutting and stuff. And I did stop by that property again, and we discussed it at our last meeting. In regard to, she had sent copies to all of us, and we passed it over to the staff. I guess Deb Jones went and did a survey at the property and stuff. And I just stopped by today just as a follow-up to see how things were a month later. There's been no further action at the property. The signs from the tree warden are still posted up there, but I just wanted to let you know that I did follow up on that, and there's been no action taken. And it doesn't really look like that much. There's been brush and stuff taken away from the location, but as far as for major trees and stuff cut down, I really didn't see any that were that far out of line with what's the allowed area for the cutting.
All right, good.
Okay, and then I was just going to say, I received verbal communication from GCA, but it's about the no ink school issue. So maybe we'll talk about that when we get to that issue.
Yeah, they blasted stuff out.
Yep.
All right, any other public communications that anyone has received? Okay. All right, so now we're on to the plan, and there was a couple things that we wanted to do today. One was the cover letter, which is in the package for edition 2. Second is any changes that was made in the document, as Tom just mentioned. Third was to spend some time on section 7. And then the final one was from a data point of view. Was there any updates, Michelle, to either the inventory list or the Greenbelt
No,
chart?
nope. Not that I know of.
Well, yeah, you would do it. So
There you go. So then I guess no.
all right, Tom, do you want to highlight any major changes? Is what was shipped out, or is this something?
The version that is in today's package is the same version that the text committee forwarded during the special meeting we had last month prior to the special meeting. So that it's been unchanged from that. I've received no inputs. So I don't know if you need me. I can bring up the document and share it if you want.
All right. Well, we've been through it a number of times. Does anyone have any?
I'm hesitant. I really don't have anything special. If you want me to share it, I can and walk through it. But the only changes that, as I noticed before, was the incorporation of all the items from that were from the parcel team in regard to the, I'll bring it up here. Yeah, you should see it now. So the we had some updates, as I mentioned during the last meeting with the 2.8, like the title change, and then we had the areas in where we added in the NER section. We had and also a rewrite relative to the climate change impact. We did based on inputs we received from Groton Open Space. I mean, from Groton Conservation Advocates and also from the sustainability team. We updated the words in here for all the buffering, tidal wetlands, and this type of stuff. We went through all that and made sure. And then we also added this natural estuarian research reserves in here from the as requested by GOSA. So there was a number of things added in section 3.2, and then the only other thing, and with that there was an additional recommendation made for us here for the establishment of a document review process for the NER, which starts really tomorrow when they have their first public hearing and stuff. And so just somebody has to be assigned to go and take a look at that, attend their meeting, and get whatever documents they're going to have, which would complete those actions. So that's the big ticket items that we did from a text perspective, were the areas that we updated. And then you had the inventory, and this is the inventory that I received from Michelle. And then with that, we also updated the open space history map to make sure that we had all the parcels were included, which we included, like updated for the Briar Hill and stuff that happened on the 7th of this month. And then we also updated the three maps. We put the Michelle's map in here so that it'll show up and stuff. And then likewise, we use that map in section 3.1 for the proposed green belts. And now I had on this particular version of the map, it's got the green belts on here, but there are some errors per se or corrections that I would like to see made to these, and I don't have the capability of changing this. And I passed an email to Michelle with those recommended changes, such as this one shouldn't be going through the subbase, for example, and stuff. So,
Right. and I figured I'd wait and make any additions based on also the feedback. So
and that's fine too. I mean,
final.
these are kind of nitnoid things. It's kind of and so that was the only other thing I had. So all the text and parcel team comments are included in this version. The conversion has been essentially locked down since our last special meeting, and I've received no changes. And so I'm recommending that this be the version that we continue to use. Bruce has a copy of it as we go forward.
Tom, this is Michelle. I have one question. You said something about the property that was just added this month. I don't think that's on my. I don't think it might be in the text, but I don't think it's on my list.
Okay.
So I need to add that to the inventory.
Well, it may not. It's so small. It's point whatever acres. So I'm not too worried about it.
Okay.
It'll show up as a correction. I think I sent that to you also.
Okay.
That's down in grass. Okay. So I'll stop sharing here and go back.
All right. So Bray has his hand raised.
I have a quick question for Tom. NERR, N-E-R-R.
Yes.
What was it? National
Estuary Research Reserves. And there's basically in Groton, it's basically Haley Farm, Avery Point, and Bluff Point are one of the designated areas, along with 2 sites along the Connecticut River that'll all be put together to make up the Connecticut NER area. It'll be the 30th one for in the U.S. So, but it's been approved to have it in Connecticut, but they haven't gone through all the final process. It takes about 2 years to go through all the paperwork and public hearings and all that kind of stuff. And the first public hearing's tomorrow night.
Thank you. The reason-
And I did ask that they send us a link to a replay of it because I have a conflict tomorrow night. So we'll be able to at least see what they were talking about.
I'll be available to attend that and had planned on attending it.
Okay.
That's at 7 p.m.
The only reason I asked was that there was a national Estuarian research group many years ago with the same abbreviation, but it
It's
was
probably the same group.
it was an opportunity when I was in grad school for people to present papers that were student papers, let's say, on the theme, and they would hold meetings once or twice a year, and different universities would contribute to those particular meetings. And it was a national organization for folks to join. So apparently has been resurrected, a new meeting and new direction. So good, thanks.
All right. What I would like to, let me do a quick share screen. Okay, so this is section 7. And I think my point was, as we move forward, this is going to be what we work on for the next X years, because we're certainly not going to do a plan update every year. And so I thought that we should all do a quick run through of it. And what I was looking at is this wouldn't go in the document, but this would then become something that would be our action list. So I wanted to talk about, do we want to, like we did before, have somebody be the sponsor, if you will, of a specific action, or identify that something that is going to be part of the commission in total, and then start to have statuses and updates as we roll through our upcoming meetings. The first 3 columns is what's in the plan, and I wanted to make sure that we agreed on responsibility. So I made some comments in red. Whoops, let me go to the top, I guess, just to go through it. And if you don't have any comments, we can go through this pretty quick. If you have a comment, bring it up. The first section is from the POCD. So these aren't ones we're going to change. The question is who's responsible, and the timing, the short-term, long-term ones. I kind of went, what do we really mean by that? Not that we necessarily put them in here, but we kind of keep track on what we think is a priority or something we want to do, address more quickly than something else. So for example, I guess Tom then added some comments as a result that said this is almost complete on the open space management plan. So I think this one we could probably leave as is. Any objections to that?
Are you showing this on the screen?
Yeah,
Sorry?
it should be in the screen share.
Because I'm just looking at, it says Zoom across my screen. I don't know what happened.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it
I
says
see it here just fine.
Because I saw it and now it's dropped with whatever you're sharing. All I can see is the windows of each one of us.
I'm not sure. How about the rest of you?
Oh, I'm fine. I can see it.
I see it.
It's working for me.
Yeah, I can see
Right.
it too.
Ray, maybe you can, is there an option for you to swipe over maybe, or another screen down below?
Let me see. Oh, so a sec. we are reviewing Larry Dunn's screen. So whatever he put up, let me try view options, see what it does. Okay, for whatever Larry put up, for some reason, it's dumped me out. I'm still participating in the meeting.
All right, as I said, it's exactly the section 7, and then I was trying to add some information for us to carry on. So on the 2.2-7, the plan is the plan. That's what we're coming out with. Tom, is that was your view on that one?
What I recommended or commented to.
All right, to issue the plan, develop criteria, which I thought we did, right? That was kind of my comment. Isn't this complete with our criteria? And say yes and recommend close upon issue of the plan. So that's good. Develop an action plan to establish, expand, and connect the greenbelt and state greenways. And I guess my question is that should this be us, or should we then say the Parks and Rec is responsible for the execution of the plan?
I think it needs to be in Michelle, I think it needs to be in combination with Parks and Rec and even planning. I mean, the whole idea is how are we going to get those parcels that would make our greenways complete? That's not us. It's not totally us. We identified them, but I think that's a group thing.
Yeah, the town.
Tom?
Well, that's why I said that we're coming at this from the green belts to turning those into greenways. Parks and Rec already attempted to go and take the POCD green belts and went to the town council, sent their application into the state, and it was never accepted back in spring of 2019. Based on that, I think we as a Conservation Commission, if we want to see this, is go back and retool there and work with the Parks and Rec committee or commission, have a joint meeting of some sort, find out why that their request got disapproved, what's it going to take to get, and also to reformulate their submission to tie better to Ledyard and New London, as well as potentially Stonington, because Stonington in their POCD does address the desire to have a greenway, but they don't have any information about it. So theoretically, we could be linking up with them also. But that said, I think we need to have a joint meeting with Parks and Rec, because they obviously are willing to, they see some financial benefit to do it, because they see additional funding for some of their efforts. And so I think that's why it's critical for us to have a joint meeting with them in the future,
Right.
Basically put together what the path forward is.
So my recommendation is to change this to be Parks and Recs and Conservation Commission.
That's fine.
Any objections? Okay. And when we get through this, then Tom, and just these 4, just up to here, would be updated in section 7.
Okay,
Okay.
I can do that.
Okay. 215. I guess you can read it. This is the coastal program, that kind of stuff. We had a lot of discussion about there's a sustainability commission, and we were kind of saying task force, to have them kind of take the lead on this rather than us. So I guess that's the discussion.
I mean, I think realistically, sorry, it's Kristen. Realistically, how much actual authority do we have to do anything other than advocate for this kind of stuff?
We don't on anything, quite frankly.
Yeah, so then it seems to me like it should be, things should be given to the town or someone who actually has the legal and physical ability to actually accomplish things.
Tom?
one of the questions I had for after looking at this on a go forward basis is, did the parcel team put together any recommendations of desirable properties that would meet this criteria for the coastal program? Because I mean, and if we do have some, then we may want to kind of put together some kind of package that says, hey, we feel if these are desirable properties, take a look and work with the planning staff to see if there are opportunities there for purchase or for putting money, or going after a program. But I think until this kind of goes back to when I thought this was with the parcel team, to be identifying those coastal parcels that would be of interest in meeting this criteria. Did that ever happen?
Well, this is Larry. There is very little, let's call it opportunity on the coastline. Bray and Michelle, you want to weigh in? Because I know we had that discussion.
Yeah, I agree. We had that discussion. We could probably look at it a little more closely. So I would say, Tom, if I'm understanding your sort of path on this, it would be we should take another look and see if we have any suggestions, and then give them to somebody else for action. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah. So the first order of business is us taking another look to see what we have for recommendations.
But we then would what? Give it to the Sustainability Commission, Bray?
Sustainability or planning or somebody. I don't know enough. I don't understand enough to know who should have this action. So that I don't know.
If I can step in for a second, both this 215 and 218 are somewhat very similar. The town coastal influence is very much established by the state coastal program, which sort of supersedes local. So the state has identified their own coastal plan, trying to make somewhat uniform rules and regs from each community as you go up and down the coastline. And when in the past, if we're within a certain distance of the actual shore, you have to go to the state with any proposed plans that would be different than theirs or adding on to it. So I'm going to stand to Bruce to see an update on that. But I think a lot of this identifying lands, making overlay zones and so forth, that's all way beyond what we can do. Bruce?
Yeah, thank you, Bray. Bruce Lockford here from Planning and Development. I was going to mention this under 2-18. We do technically have a coastal overlay zone. It's called the Coastal Area Management Zone, and like Bray said, it is it's a state statute, and it's really a state program that allows municipalities to regulate land developments within the coastal area. So any application that comes in that requires a site plan does need to also submit a coastal site plan application if they're within that overlay zone we have right now. Findings that we have to make are pretty similar to what you have outlined there in 2-15, with discharge of stormwater to coastal waters, making sure that the tidal marshes and coastal features aren't disturbed. Those are all findings that the Planning and Zoning Commission needs to make before approving a project. Could it be looked at and modified? It's possible, but as Bray said, the intention is to have it be pretty uniform across the state, and it's a state program, but it's something we could look into, and that would be more the responsibility of the planning staff.
All right. Well, given what I heard is, I'd kind of say we've got some work to do here to see if we can identify potential parcels. But down here is, I'd say, the resiliency, sustainability in the planning department. And there's not a lot that we can do. Is that fair, guys?
Yes, I would say, this is Bray. I agree with Michelle that we could relook at our parcel picture along the coastline. We didn't pick out very many because the coastline's pretty well spoken for. And look at areas in more detail about sea level rise, salt marshes moving back. But all we can do is recommend. We don't have the power to make overlay zones to say we feel that in this particular area that this should happen. That's all done by the regulatory groups within the town.
All right, Tom has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm the guy that transferred this from the POCD to our plan because I was ignorant as far as all this coastal development. It kind of sounded like it had some type of conservation tweak to it. So that's why I left it in there so we wouldn't miss it. I have no problem deleting this thing out of here if there's really no action for the Conservation Commission. If this is really a planning department and sustainability task force item, I have no problem taking this out because there's nothing that says it is I don't believe it says it's Conservation Commission in the POCD.
Well, that's any comments on that, either to accept the changes I made or just delete the whole darn thing? Viewpoints?
Suggest, this is Bray, I would suggest deleting 2-15 and 2-18 to complement what Tom just said.
Well, 2-15 is assigned to us in the POCD. I just went back and checked the POCD, and 15 we are assigned action in 2-15. And 2-18, we are not assigned action, so we can delete that one.
Can I just follow up on that? The development of plans to restore eroded tidal marshes and so forth. When grants have been available over the years, Groton has been reviewed. All that effort identifying which marshes need to be replaced, which are considered as damaged and could be restored, is done between the state and planning department. I'm supposed to do some of the local work, then it probably has to go through P&Z. But a lot of that, I don't think we have the expertise or the wanting of actually walking the whole border of the town to look for salt marshes and then try to guess what should happen or not happen. And the ones that were most endangered have been restored. The last one of note that was large enough is just north of Mumford Cove, Groton Long Point in Mumford Cove itself. There was a dredge area where dredge spoils were dumped, and the marsh was closed off. And I don't know, 15 years ago, they came in with heavy equipment, removed some of that dredge material, and reopened the tidal flooding into that particular marsh to bring it back. But other than that, looking up and down the coast, there isn't that much that I think we have a very astute planning department that's very careful about salt marshes, with lots of people who walk along the shoreline and would see problems if they occur and report back to the town that somebody's impacting eelgrass bed or filling a marsh, and then the town would do the appropriate reactions to that. So right now, I think that's in good hands, and we have a lot of other issues that we can deal with besides this.
All right, option on the table, delete 2-15-18. Show of hands that says they support that.
I heard keep 15 and delete 18.
The only reason I would argue to keep 15 is that in the POCD, we are identified as along with Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission, the Town Council, HMC, And the lead is with the planning staff.
Okay, let me revise my question. All in favor of deleting 218, raise their hand.
Yes.
Okay, so that quick do that. Then shows up. Then the next question is, all those in favor of deleting 215, raise their hands. Okay, so we'll leave that in. All right, moving right along. We're up to 7.2.1. I think, let's see, this is ensure the protection. This is pretty specific in terms of the Northeast branch. I think the point is, how do we want to handle this? Do we want to handle this as a commission, or do we want it, as we go through here, have somebody saying, okay, I'll take that one? I think is my main question here. Tom?
Well, I've been on these webinars through CLCC and GOSA, and they've twice had the commissioner from DEP, this Katie, and she talked at the Kakiwik back when we were there earlier this year. When we've asked, you get to submit questions ahead of time please put these questions in, and then I'll try to answer them as part of the package. Well, both times I submitted a question, hey, what are you doing with your property in Groton for the Gunji Womp? And she's ignored it. So it just gives us a data point. That's the only reason I'm recommending that maybe we need to go a more formal process by a formal letter from the Conservation Commission to DEP. It says, hey, you foreclosed on this property. What are you doing to put it into future? Are you putting a conservation easement on it? Are you putting a recreation easement on it? What are you doing with this property that the state owns? Okay, because you got it for free. You didn't have to pay any money, so it didn't. They have processed all the paperwork for ownership, but I don't see where that they processed any type of protection on the land. That's my concern.
Ray has the floor.
Thank you. The question I have is that the YMCA property includes part of the Gunji Womp historic archaeology features of land. And it's my understanding, I think it was in the paper a while back when the state was taking over the YMCA property, that at least the Gunji Womp archaeological structures and so forth was given over to the Nature Center. So the management, from my understanding right now, of which would be the whole property, is the Pequot Nature Center, because they were the ones in the last years to run tours out there. And we're trying to shepherd protection and decide on how best to have people on the property. I think because of the nature of it, right now, quiet is better than noisy as far as what is actually there, because they're afraid that a lot of the old stone structures need to be reinforced. There needs to be some money put back into it. And I don't think I haven't heard anybody talking about moving ahead on that, but I'm not in the circle, if you will, of whoever's doing the management. So I would say that right now, we certainly should follow what's going to happen, and if and when they do finally make a decision, or we can be part of that decision. I don't know how many of you have actually walked the property, or actually looked at some of the trails that are out there, looked at around the bottom of the pond. You can access it from the elementary school on the west side of the property. But it's I think one of those things that it's hanging out there. It's probably with the state, with the reduced personnel that they have working on these things, The management decision is probably going to be somewhere in the distance. But I certainly think that we should be aware of what's going on there. And if we're asked, be ready to give some suggestions. Probably when we get to that point of the stewardship, of looking at establishing stewardship plans for other open space, that we'd also may have some suggestions for this property. So right now, instead of timing short term, because the nature center already has some control over it, that's more of a mid or a long-term project.
So I am suggesting we keep it, but change it to that. This one didn't have a lot of comments. Again, looking at these things, so when it says planning department, I'm more inclined to keep moving, except when it's on us, unless somebody wants to say that we should take a bigger role.
Is this,
We did, what's that?
you've moved on to 7211B?
7212B, yes.
In the plan, there is several spots as you move down about in suggesting people put their land in 490. And
Yes.
we have, we've always stayed away from that. We've always hoped that people would put their property into 490, but it's a totally an individual property owner's benefit to do it if they can. And it's not something, also the tax assessor for Groton probably isn't happy every time a new 490 shows up, because they're not, if it's a large piece of property, it's woods, and it doesn't have a 490 on it, they're happy that more taxes are being collected than being put into 490. But I think a lot of the property right now in the town that it's open and has been put in 490, because I think anybody who owns a big piece of property that's open is aware of what 490 can do for them. And it's not really something that, at least in my past, that we've gone out and make suggestions to people to do that.
Tom has his hand raised.
The reason I used these words the way I did was for the part, I guess is kind of a follow-up to exactly what Bray was saying, is that did the parcel team take a look at all parcels greater than 25 acres that would then be eligible for the 490 program and take a look and see what's left over? Is there anything that would reasonably be able to put into the program? If not, then we can just close all this out and take the 490 recommendations over. If you haven't done that, maybe that's something we should be, that's really the action that I'd be considering here is where are we relative to, are we maxed out on 490 or not? Because it doesn't take a rocket scientist once you have all the parcel lists to take a look at things over 25 acres that are not in the program that there would be potential opportunities.
Yeah, it's certainly in the data. Michelle?
This is Michelle. We had that list of, I don't know, maybe it's 15 or so properties that are owned by people that not in the 490. So I think we need to take another closer look at that. So we never talked about what our plan was for that list of properties that weren't already covered in the program. So I think that is the discussion we need to have. So I guess that means, yeah, we basically put us as responsible to talk about what to do with that other list of properties.
All right. I'm zipping through, these are all planning departments. We get down to 721.5. Pursue designation of the Groton Greenbelt system as a Connecticut Greenway is the Conservation Commission. And my question, why isn't that Parks and Rec versus us? I mean, because we don't have the authority to work with the state to do that. Am I misreading that? Tom?
I agree with you. I just want to put an agree there. This should probably be, well, as I mentioned before, however, though, our plan, I think we can work with, so have a joint meeting with Parks and Rec and provide them some additional background information so they have a stronger application to resubmit. I think we owe it to them to say, hey, we did a bunch of research here. We'd like you to use our plan here as a source document as far as when you update your application on a go-forward basis, and also with our revised expansion of the Greenbelt plan. But we owe them the courtesy of providing that of a joint meeting.
All right. That's fine. And that's kind of what I want to do. I thought some of these really should be just what you said, that we provide input to them, but not necessarily. Darn, I'm trying to copy this and slap that in there. I mean, there's a lot of actions in here, and my view is to get rid of as many as we could, quite frankly, and be able to focus and prioritize at a subsequent meeting how to prioritize these.
Well, one of the things, I mean, you're screwing through those, but one of the things that we had was for us to support going to CCOG and for us to support going to supporting the Trails Master Plan on a long-term basis, so that these recommendations show here. But I would say, rather than just saying it's Parks and Rec, it'd be a joint thing for the Conservation Commission and Parks and Rec. Conservation Rec, we make the input, they have to them, and they make the submission to the state. So it's like a two-part responsibility on those three items. This way, we're still keeping track of them instead of just writing them off as a conservation, as a Parks and Rec problem, because yeah, that's
all right.
If I could end it, this is Bray. One observation that I have is that the Groton Greenbelt system maybe, I don't know what Parks and Rec thinks of what that term means, but I know a few years ago when Deb Jones was heading up our commission before Bruce, that when the Greenbelt Connecticut Greenways, I should say, opportunity came along, that they were looking for connecting trails through different open space that became what we call Crosstown Trail, if you will. And that became our submission, I believe, to the state, be considered as a Connecticut Greenway. So it was a connecting trail system and not just a series of lands connected together as an environmental break. So I think a discussion with the Parks and Rec Commission or Parks and Rec Department would certainly move that whole thing ahead to figure out what are they looking for in order to pursue grant money and better define that. So I think it should stay, but it's one where it needs further fleshing out, figuring out what we want to do.
All right, Tom, comments?
just I agree with everything Bray said, with except one extension on it was that on the last submission on the February 2019, what Parks and Rec, I got this directly from Mr. Berry from the submission that he made to the state, and they just took the whole POCD
All right, but remember, guys, we're not solving anything here. We're trying to just identify whether we want to accept responsibility or be a secondary input. The same thing in coastal mapping. We had, we said the planning department in this area. So does that change, you know, from the coastal section way above? I think that's what we said, right? On back up here.
Michelle, you're muted.
I'm waiting for Larry to go back to the thing that we just went from.
Yeah, up here on their coastal site. You know, so why wouldn't it be the same thing? Why wouldn't it be that? There's 7.
I think we're always happy to have input on things but as far as being in charge of all this stuff, I mean, we're realistically.
Yeah, we're not in charge of any of that.
Yeah, right. So it's just more like support, opinion, you know, input, whatever that might mean.
This is a document that is for our benefit, as Larry was saying, is action items and so forth. I think I'll just leave it as it stands. And it'll be discussions as we go forward. But we don't have to make any decisions. I don't see any reason for dropping it. I just think it's, we need to further define it at some future time, and as well as have communication with Parks and Rec over it.
So again, these coastal ones, it has us responsible, endorses the work. So that one's easy enough to review. That one says we're going to do continue support. Well, okay, I guess it's supporting, the action is supporting the work of others, which I think are probably fair. So I would delete that and leave that as is unless someone wants to object. Planning department. 7241 is, I was kind of wondering, isn't this something that we'd expect the tree warden to do and then we provide oversight? I mean, it says it over here. So why wouldn't responsibility be the tree warden, joint, plus us?
But the tree warden, this is Michelle. I thought the tree warden was only for along the streets. This is about the whole forest. The tree warden, unless we're going to change, somebody's going to change the definition of the tree warden's responsibilities, they're not responsible for the overall forest canopy.
Yeah, and we are the tree advisory board, remember?
To them, but they're not. We're advising the board, but they're only responsible for the road. So, yeah, I guess this goes back to, are we claiming that we're responsible for all the trees in this giving advice for all the trees in the state, because nobody's responsible for that. For the overall picture.
Well, I think this was the part of our oversight.
But well, not necessarily. It's just that our oversight is of the tree warden. The tree advisory board is for the tree warden. It's not for all the trees in the state.
Well, but
can I just
right.
quickly that I think this is a question about between what the jurisdiction that the tree warden, he's hired by the town to take care of town trees. We have no say over private property. What happens on private property, other than whatever the planning department, if it's an inland wetland issue, soil erosion issues as a result of, let's say, tree clearing. But other than that, our commission has no control over what people cut or don't cut on private property.
Tom?
Well, this kind of goes along with what Brace is indicating here also, is that our oversight role, we have a specific item in the next item where we go in for subdivision regulations where we're saying, hey, we want to be proactive here to ensure the canopy stays maintained. So one of the things we can do is make sure on the subdivision regulations is that we put plantings, and for anything you take down, you got to put something up. I think that one of the things that we on 4.1 was to have some oversight or look at what the tree warden is doing for when he's authorizing a tree down. What's the internal process within Parks and Rec and Public Works for replacement of a tree that comes down? And I think that's what the thought was behind this particular item was, we as the Conservation Commission and Tree Advisory Board needs to be proactively pushing out a policy for the town to go forward with, to be tracking the number of trees that the town is getting rid of and not replacing. And I think that's really why this action item was here in the first place, was for us to be developing that kind of policy as the Tree Advisory Board through and as our hat in the Conservation Commission. You want to make this Conservation Commission slant Tree Advisory Board and then keep it, but I can't see eliminating this and just saying, hell, wait a second, this is a planning department or some other problem. No, we have action here as the Tree Advisory Board to be proactively developing some type of policy and procedures within the town to ensuring that they're keeping their portion of the canopy in place.
Yeah, if we don't stick up for the trees, who will?
This is Michelle. I know we're not solving this now, but just want to make a point that having talked to the tree warden, I'm wondering how much of the state's tree population even falls here. Is it 2%, 5%, 10%? I mean, we could be talking about a very small piece that really isn't going to affect any of the other stuff going on. So I think the first order of business is just to figure out what exactly is the extent of that responsibility, because I don't think we fully did that yet.
Well, again, part of the action item is to dig into it and be more specific, right, or to be supportive or not supportive. I mean, we could come up and do an analysis and say, that ain't worth it. We're going to focus on other things. So this is the biggest list. It isn't necessarily the list we're going to work on. That's a future discussion. Although we have eliminated a couple up front. So I'm okay with leaving it as kind of, an oversight of whoever does it. I think, as Kristen said, part of our job is to help the trees, be a tree advocate, if you will. So I'm okay with that.
I would just make the responsibility of the Conservation Commission slant Tree Advisory Board then.
Well, is that, well, okay. So they're responsible for the regulations. Yes, we would provide input to it. The same thing. Yeah, well, this is actually slightly redundant given the discussions we've had in the past. So we may want to, as we go forward, kind of pull some of these similar things together and kind of group them. But again, we could wait on that. The organization here is based upon what's in the plan. And this is basically what we just said. So, I mean, some of these, like I said, are overlapping.
Could I also just point out that just because it says we're accepting some responsibility for things, it doesn't mean we have all the responsibility. And the amount that we choose to go in a direction might be dictated by issues that are coming before the town. So, it's not 100%.
Absolutely.
Anything we choose to say we're involved in doesn't mean we're 100% committed to actually getting it done ourselves.
I agree, because we're an advisory group. We're not a regulatory group. So, we get to pick the things we want to focus on. Like we did plastics, right? Focused on that and help drive that. So I think the same thing is there. I think we've it's in our criteria. So that's in there. So I didn't have a lot of issues with some of these. Guys, stop me if I'm scrolling through and you want to bring something up. So we did, to Tom's point, we have looked at that. It's in the listing and it's in the prioritization. But then the next steps of what do we do about that listing is a separate action. That basically says we continue to support, get involved with the disposition of properties, which we've been doing. Subdivision review, subdivision regulations. I mean, so I think these were not really controversial. This one's kind of got to figure out what to do there. This comes up, by the way, whenever we're talking about a school closing, there's a few members of the council that talk about, well, why not over here? Why is it there and not here? And that's kind of what this is. And there's not a lot of data that talks about access based upon a variety of parameters. And I think it's useful that that analysis is done so we can get this out of the subjective view that I hear sometimes to be more objective in terms of data driven about who has access to what. Maybe that's based upon distance from a park, how many zones of 1,000 meters or whatever we want to pick. Oh man, there's more of this stuff. Church compliance. So again, these are support items. Work closely with Parks and Rec, coordinate with the town council. So a lot of these are exactly what it is advisory in general. And I think, these were other things that I picked up from the 2020 list and I threw them in here to have a complete list that we've had. And that's it. So we took out 2, kept the rest. It's a modification. But I guess my key point was that we all went through it and had the ability to kind of make comments if there were some issues on it. This last stuff is not in the open space plan, by the way. This is going to be on our, let's call it our tracking document.
Well, this is my question right now. Right now, 7.4 is in the document, okay, and including section the 5 recommendations 1 through 4.1 through 4.5. Those are all show up in the actual chapter 7 of the document, and that's what I'm asking is, do you want these in here or not? And particularly the last one, the 7.5, we really never have discussed as a group. We've all lived through plastics and solid waste. We've had in pollinators. We've had discussions in the past on those items, and they've been on our agenda as a commission. But to declare the climate emergency has never shown up on an agenda or anything. This will be the first time this actually gets any press per se in distribution and everything. So the real question is tonight, this is the one and only time to discuss this particular 7.4.5 is, do we want this in here or not? This was came from the text team as a result of the inputs that we received from the sustainability and Groton advocacy and Ann's research. And that's when we added this one in there.
Michelle?
Yeah. So I don't have any problem with leaving that as on our action list to discuss. I don't think this whole list belongs in the plan.
7.4?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's yeah.
That's more our internal planning of issues we want to be focusing on, but they're not, it shouldn't be in the POCD.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't belong in the open space plan. It's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, other comments? I'm okay with taking it out. I'm leaving it in the tracking document, but taking it out of the open space
Right.
plan. Okay. All right, Tom, did you catch it?
I'll be out. I'll take the whole section out.
Okay. So I will save this and chip it to you, and not the last column, but some of these have been updated, and that
Yeah.
would be an update for the plan.
The plan. And I'll take
Okay.
action on that and make sure I coordinate those and get an update to you later tonight or first thing by tomorrow morning so that Bruce has that for the distribution with the letter, the cover letter.
All right, so I would like to move on to the cover letter. Let's see. Is that going to come up? That did not come up. So I have to stop sharing and start sharing. Okay, this should be what's in the PDF that you've got.
Yeah, we see it.
And hold on, so I gotta put a note in my actions, send. Section 17. All right, so we're ready for our publication. I think there's a couple questions is, what are we gonna date it? If we get through today, I guess I'd propose putting the date of August 3rd. This was the distribution list that we had talked about, just to take a gander at that, folks. And I guess we'd have to have a link for Bruce. Yep.
So in
Michelle?
the distribution list, aren't we also including the town council and the RTM?
Yeah, I put those. I was going to add those as down here.
Why there instead of distribution?
Oh, what do you think? A 2 or carbon copy?
Well, I would put it, let's look at the list again. If you put it in distribution, then everybody else knows that they're also getting it. So it makes it really obvious to the people receiving it that those other people are getting it also.
Yeah, Larry, this is Tom. In the document that you sent, that was sent out, this, for the agenda for today, it had the town council.
Right.
RTM was listed there. Now it's not in your version you're showing us.
Okay, it may have been because Bruce added the stuff after our discussion. Hold on, let me go to the PDF. Oh yeah, all right. Let me stop sharing and do that one. Okay. I thought it, because it's hard to edit a PDF here. Did that work? No. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this was based upon the changes. So we did throw this in town manager's office, town council, the RTM, and then the other folks. Okay, so that answers that question.
The only item I see that is we do mention New London, and I didn't know if we should be sending it to the Town New London Conservation Commission because we do have the linkage across the river with them. Just like you have Stonington and Ledyard, it was all for these greenways issues, and that's one would be New London.
Comments on that? Ray, you've dealt with them before, I assume.
No, I agree.
All right.
I agree too, but also shouldn't the city conservation commission be on there as well? Groton?
Was it? My question is, was the city and Groton Long Point? I thought they went on version 1.
Did
Right,
get
they were on
one?
version 1. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, never mind then.
You could include the City of Groton Planning Department if you wanted to, but the City of Groton Conservation Commission was on phase one.
That's right. So, yeah, okay. Yeah, so I would recommend that we add the City of Groton Planning Department.
All right, are you keeping notes, Bruce?
Yes.
Yep, I can't edit this real time here.
But just a question on New London. Do you mean the New London Conservation Commission? You'd
Yes.
like to? Okay.
All right, we'd have to have the link. All right, here's the text. That's the same actually as the last time. That's the same as last time. I think that's the same as last time. This plan has received input from the local conservation organizations. Now, I think we were going to add the original reviewers, Bruce, on the bottom, which would then be GOSA, Avalonia, right? The ones from the first
GCA.
GCA, right? All those that we put on the first edition. Any recommendations or improvements to you? Now, this is new, right? Section 7, where we identified, we just went through, identified the staff departments, et cetera, so that they pay attention to that. Now, then we had this add-on about things that we're going to do in the future. So that's open for discussion. Any comments on should we say anything about what we're going to do in the future? And if so, are these the two we want to highlight? Tom?
I'd recommend just blocking that out. And at this point, we want to say this is the plan.
Yeah, I agree. It's we shouldn't be committing to what, going forward, because things might change going forward. You never know what might come up that we really need to focus on urgently,
So show of hands to delete any 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I guess that answers that. We'll delete that. Oh, I can't. Oh, it does do delete. Interesting. Okay. Got that, Bruce?
Can you send me this after? Well,
It's the whole damn document. Let's see. I think,
I can remember to delete that.
yeah, I don't think it, yeah, see, I can't, it won't allow me to, I guess allow me to strike things, but not necessarily add things.
Okay, no problem. I can do that.
Sorry. That was it.
If I could just make a suggestion here, I don't see a deadline date that you want comments back from everyone.
That's a good point. Any comments, recommendations, or improvements?
Yeah, we told them 6 to 8 weeks in the briefing, didn't we?
Yes, we did. So 8 weeks from August 3rd, August, September, October.
I'd say September.
I would make end of September.
Yeah, because giving more time just gives them more time to procrastinate.
Plus, if we say end of September, then we'll have them for our October meeting.
Okay, so, okay, please, so that sentence should be changed to please provide any comments or by
Say October 1st, maybe.
October 1st and
Well, it's okay.
Well, let me see.
and then directed to you, to your mail ID, Bruce.
And just make sure the comments are in when the packets need to go out. I think September 30th would be better.
Yeah.
All right,
That's still 2 months. That's a good period of time to review, and that would allow me to put all the comments into the October packet.
okay. All right, I will then request a motion from the floor to publish the, Tom?
I'd Will we accept the, and authorize you to send the letter as marked up?
I'll second.
Okay, discussions. I would like the motion to be amended to authorize the release of draft 2 of the plan
Right.
as agreed to tonight. Would you agree with that, Tom?
I agree.
And I'll secondly agree.
Okay. All right, discussion. Just want to make sure we had the authority to release the darn plan. Any discussion?
I just have a question. So that was a motion to send the letter and release draft 2 of the plan, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
I see, and you have to say it. Ann, are you on mute?
I just heard a bunch of static. That might have been her.
She's digitally raising her hand.
She digitally raised her hand? Okay,
Yes.
we'll accept that. Would you so record? It's a unanimous decision to release the plan and the cover letter as amended tonight. All right. Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
For-
So
for-
this is Michelle. I need to leave in about 5 minutes. So is there anything that is critical for a vote that we can do first, or I'll just leave in 5 minutes when I have to leave?
Well, I guess I was going to wait till later, but since you're going to leave, I wanted to thank the team. Probably a good point. The review, was, I think, positively received at the town council meeting. I guess they're looking forward for draft 2. So we'll see how we go forward. So I think it was a nice job by all of you guys, and it's nice we kind of got this, in the bank, if you will, in terms of the plan. So thumbs up to all of you. And Michelle, you did a lot of work on that, on the data.
I think the text team did more work than I did, but that's okay. I think this was a great group effort.
Yeah, and within the text team, all credit's got to go to Tom because he really carried the burden. So kudos to Tom.
But overall, we make a great team.
Yes.
Very good. That's the thing I wanted to mention, Michelle, before you left.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go off and Larry, I don't know if there is any reason for us to do a let's see this, for us to do a subcommittee data. If I get any more work done, I'll let you know and we can have a meeting.
Sounds good.
All right. All right.
All right.
Talk to you guys later.
Bye,
Very good.
Michelle.
Bye.
Michelle.
All right, going back to the agenda, we're on 4.3, which is the Noang school site. There was a contentious meeting on the July 28th. At that meeting, as reported in the day, if you didn't have a chance to actually listen to I think it went on to 10:30. If you've seen that famous picture, right? Which basically is a revised from the first one. The council did have a vote and approved that conceptual design, which is a small, more of a natural practice field rather than a formal field. I suspect they're going to have a festoche about that as well. There is a meeting tomorrow. It's item 2020-492 at the town council meeting. Oops, no, not 492, wrong one. Wrong one. I retract that. I doubt whether it's, I don't know what's going to happen. I think as we go forward, there's questions about a special zoning use permit to have it as a park, which kind of bubbled up out of the Noank community. And I did check the zoning regs. And there is something in there. It does say it's required. So I'm gonna let the no ink executive committee handle that. I don't want to rehash that, quite frankly. I do think if you've read the Day article that the mayor referenced us several times in her interview, the Conservation Commission several times. So I think it's positive that that our input and work on this was, I won't say instrumental, but was certainly a factor, a significant factor in the decision process. So thank you all for that. So any comments on the no ink school issue?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead, Bray, if you want.
Okay. The only comment I'd like to add is that going forward, hopefully we continue to have the no ink school site as set aside as a park. Is that as the new schools, elementary schools are being built, as the finishing up on the middle school, getting ready for the fall opening, that there's going to be several schools coming down, elementary schools coming down, and what to do with the sites. Clochester at the bottom of Fort Hill, the elementary school that's next to Quantic Plains, I think they call it the athletic field. That's been suggested to convert its fields to be converted over in addition, athletic fields in addition to Quantic Plains. From my standpoint, I think that's a wonderful suggestion. Another school that's going to get knocked down is going to be the Butler School here in Mystic. And again, the question will be what to do with it. And it's going to go through the same battles, and the same lines are probably going to be drawn in the sand. But I think at some point in the future, we should maybe have as a conservation commission discussion about these parks. Are we promoting more than just the one at No Ink, the school site, or and then stop with that? Or do we think that some other present town-owned school sites, that if they close the schools and knock them down, that they should also perhaps be community parks? So I just want to put that on the table.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we've taken position on 3 properties, 1 state, 2 town. And I would expect that as a commission, we would address and provide input in a position on each school property as it comes up. I mean, I don't see any reason why we would not. I don't want to prejudge any decision. I mean, I personally happen to agree with you that the Quantic Park one's a natural, right? In terms of where it is and to have that. But I think everyone we would have to look at and then provide a formal review and recommendation into the town council based upon our review. Tom, you have a comment?
I understand the Quantic Plains and the Clochester in regard to it, but I think, you know, let's not get ahead of ourselves as far as running the numbers, because the Clochester is surrounded by businesses right now, and they'd like to, I think, to some extent, just extend right up Route 117 there. You know, there may be an economic model that says that that's better for the town. So I think maybe a subdivision type of thing, such as we're doing up at the up on Route 12 there, with that school, may be something we have to consider as far as taking a look at what happens with the economic model.
No, I mean, that's fair. Like I said, we got to look at each one. I mean, maybe there's a strip, maybe it's, you know, a strip with something, or I don't know. But we don't know what we don't know at this point. I do know Parks and Recs is eyeing that for a field expansion. So that's the only reason I think that was mentioned. Kristen, you had a...
Yeah, just that, you know, Eugenia reached out to me and I think she was hoping that maybe people might speak individually. As a commission, I believe we were against regulation fields. And I thought I actually have a dentist appointment, like a long appointment, like a crown tomorrow. So I'm not sure if I'll be back in time, but some of the concerns I have are that, you know, fields require infrastructure such as electricity, such as a shed for the maintenance equipment, such as lights. If you're going to have a regulation field, you're going to have, you know, in this latitude, it gets dark towards the end. So you need to have light structures, which brings, you know, bringing grid in. You've got to have parking, multiple parking for multiple buses. There's lots of reasons why that particular property is not really suited, just because you know, the other thing is there's literally no place anywhere to even get a bottle of water or a cup of coffee for parents and fans, you know, and all that. So, you know, has anyone done like an economic analysis of the cost to the town of setting up bathrooms and all that there?
Yeah, well, first of all, what's been approved by the town council is not a field, as you mentioned, no facilities.
Right.
You know, a practice field is like
cones, flat grass and cones.
Flat grass and cones, and it's mowed, right? And the only facilities that I've heard on that is maybe there's irrigation, but other than that, you know, the point was not to have anything there.
Right.
That's what was approved. So it would have to be a revision.
Well, I think there's a groundswell by someone with perhaps some political ambition to accomplish something. And the field might, you know, the fields for kids to play sports might be the thing they're looking to accomplish. So they may try and pull the council back to get them to re-vote on it. It could become, you know, I wasn't at that meeting the other night, but anyway, I guess the GCA was requesting if as many people as possible could weigh in, that would be helpful.
I mean, my own, that's a valid point. I forgot to mention it where I'm knowing, but when we got that memo, as I kind of viewed that as a conservation commission, our position is been formally inputted. We made 2 presentations. I quite frankly didn't think that the commission should formally provide yet another input. My view is it's been resolved and voted upon. Now, as individuals, we all can do what we want. So that was, I mean, so let me throw that out there. I mean, you know, if the commission in general wants to vote to do something more formal, then I will accede to the majority. I'm just kind of giving you my view on that. So any discussion, Tom?
I agree with you totally that it should be individuals. And just for full disclosure here, I've already provided my input to the town, into the town manager saying, hey, I fully support the recommendations that was taken by the committee of the whole. However, that you need to really take a look at the funding lines here, because there is changes. It does require money, and you either need to get from the Groton, commitment from the Groton Parks Foundation, or a commitment from the town manager to be putting it into CIP 2-A, which is where parks funding and upgrades come from. So that was my input I already provided as a private citizen.
Right.
Okay, I was going to say that too. I think the idea is to weigh in as citizens. I also sent an email to all concerned parties about it. So, but if and individually we speak up, you know, because I think there's going to be a show of force to get the town council to backtrack and put in regulation fields. I think there's going to be numbers tomorrow.
All right. So it looks like the consensus is to do as individuals and not as a formal commission. The other thing that happened was the Mystic Hollow re-subdivision, 2.4 acres, been added to open space. And I thought it interesting that I think it was Heedy, when it was said that he wanted it added, that to ensure that there was legal protections for permanent open space for that 2.4 acres. So I thought that was a positive one on it. So it's not a big deal, but it's just another ad.
Larry,
Yep.
where that property is? I
Yep.
know. Upside down, that's great.
Well, it is upside down.
Um,
So it's,
it's one that we've already approved.
yes,
Yeah, okay, got it. Now I know Sandy Hollow Road, got it.
yep. All right, so that was news. So I mean, the good news is, I guess, is that, so the good news is that it seems like at most of the council meetings, something dealing with open space is on the docket. So that's actually a positive, guys. In my
Yes,
is
good.
my mood. No Wayne School. All right, so the next item on the 4-4, open space plan publication outreach. This was one that said that subsequent to the final release, maybe we could start early, I'm going to throw it out there, is that how do we convert this fairly scientific data driven document to make the outreach to the community about open space, in general, if you will. So there's a couple of folks in the community that have volunteered to help to do that. But I wanted to kick it off, or
What
get the
happened?
support from the commission to start to plan out, and maybe for presentation at the next meeting is I keep pressing keys on my keyboard, is to provide an outline of what something might look like. So
You mean like just a simplified, user-friendly, like open space is good kind of presentation?
well, I was thinking like a YouTube. I mean, or something visual that it would be easy for people to look at. They wouldn't have to work at it, and it would certainly reference our document for more details and information and background. But just something to start advertising about it. Kind of consistent with that is, I noticed in today's paper that if the CARES Act is approved, that there'll be the ability to claim a charitable deduction of $300 in addition to your standard deduction on the tax return for open space. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Really?
But yeah, it's not passed yet, but it's sitting there ready to be done, and it would apply to 2020 contributions. So I guess I'll translate that to say, if I gave $300 to GOSA, then that would be a tax deduction when we file next year. Tom?
Well, I guess my question is, are you intoning here that really, as far as raising funds for the Watros property, the town, a couple of things here that would fall into this is that, are you looking at making it to offset the amount of money that the town's going to have to appropriate for the next fiscal year? You're looking at basically about $150,000 that they would have a plus up requirement for, and to be offsetting that with our communications program here, and for donations coming into the town to offset the Watros property procurement. Is that what you're kind of intoning here?
Well, the first objective is to educate and promote open space based upon the open space plan and what's in there, right? I mean, but again, simplify. The second one is, do we want to then add to that, make this an advertisement for fundraising for a specific event? I do not know at this point whether we should do that or not. I'm just saying is that I'm looking to say there's a support over the next month to maybe outline a couple of options, and we can have the discussion at our next meeting. Kristen?
Okay, so a couple things is, one thing we could do is just kind of troll around and find I'm sure there are dozens of beautiful videos that exist about the excellent, benefits of open space. Rather than reinvent the wheel, we might find something and then just kind of tag on that we're in Groton. And I don't know that we should be shilling for any particular plot of land. Maybe more something like, here are, if you want to contribute to open space, here are some local options or something, rather than fundraising for one in particular necessarily. Those are my 2 cents.
Other comments?
The only other comment I would make, Bray, that's a great idea about seeing what is already out there and seeing how successful their presentation is. Obviously, we can't download it and without copyright, mother may I, on something like that. But I totally agree that if you have a couple of non-members or someone who is going to help you put out some sort of presentation, I look forward to our next meeting and seeing what you have.
Other comments? All right, I will take it that, since I didn't hear objections, is to kick the tires on a couple of ideas on what such an outreach might do and come back to the full commission next month. What are we, September? Oh my God.
Lord help us.
Lord help us.
No, not another COVID winter. Oh,
yes, yeah, well. And just kick around some ideas. I mean, it's good to have straw man proposals, because otherwise we just kind of go all over the place. So I'll see if I can get some straw man proposals in place prior to our next meeting. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. One other point in that. I did reach out to Parks and Recs, who has a budget and has a communications person, Jessica Patterson. Mark Berry was willing to provide her resource, if you will, to support this, because part of the Parks and Recs pillars is that open space is an economic benefit to the town, and they kind of list that as, I think, one of their 5 pillars of what's going on. So, so my thought would be that this would be something that we would also utilize some of the materials and information that Parks and Recs has already done, and they have done a number of interesting things. All right, I just thought I would throw that in. Let's see.
Tom has his hand up.
I wasn't looking. Tom.
This sounds like it's really an agenda item for a joint Parks and Rec Commission meeting with us. I just put that as toss that out for you as you're thinking about on a way forward here, because you'd be putting this outreach program combined with the greenways applications process together. May lean towards a joint meeting with them, and maybe it'd be better to outreach to them. And I don't know what their meeting schedule is, and getting on there a joint meeting agenda item.
All right, let me talk to them and see what's up. I think ideally it might be, at our next meeting, is Parks and Recs is there, or maybe Jessica is there at our meeting, and we can have the discussion.
Okay, I just tossed that out for you.
Okay, may I move forward? Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda was, it says post-publication actions and items. What's next? Well, we kind of talked about it. One was the action list, which we went over, and we'll start to review as a standard, Bruce, as a standard agenda item for each meeting going forward. And then we'll work out what our plan is based upon that. So from a homework point of view, I would say that we should look at, prioritizing and/or volunteering for certain actions or to be a sponsor of those actions for each one of you for our next meeting, but we can talk about what's next then. So that was kind of my intent there, unless, Tom, from the text point of view, is there an update or an iteration? You did have something in there about publication of the user guide. I mean, I have locked it down, so I do have a copy of the user guide that matches the plan and is available today for publication, although where it goes, I don't know.
I was just, this Tom Olson, I was just concerned relative to, I know that you and I have passed it back and forth, but I don't think it's been seen by the rest of the commission. And so are we planning to send it out for review by everybody in parallel with phase 2, or what was the plan here in regard to for the user manual?
I can certainly send it out, or I'll send it to Bruce to send it out. So what I've done is I've got a locked spreadsheet that matches the example that's in the user manual. So it's a combined user manual and spreadsheet. Now it should match what's in the plan. I mean, I endeavored to do that. I might have missed something, so it's probably not a bad thing. So let me send Bruce the user manual and lock spreadsheet. For review, right, for commission review. I think what we say in the document is contact us if you want a copy of it.
That's correct.
What we say in there, right? I mean, I've had one request so far, right? And that individual never actually read it because his next 2 questions proved to me he didn't read the darn document anyway. So I thought that was interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I had 2 requests. I stand corrected. Aubrey, no, it wasn't Aubrey. It was Zaperi, the town councilman, did ask me for a copy of the model, which I sent him. I haven't heard back, so I don't know if he read it either. All right, report of chair is the next item. So I already mentioned the 2.4 acres, the open space tax memo thing that I already read, and everything else has already come up in discussions. So the next item, yes, Tom?
I have 2 items that just kind of asking what the status of them is. One was the ordinance. We had drafted up as part of one of the earlier drafts of the plan, a proposed ordinance. I know I had gotten comments back. It had been distributed to the entire commission. Ray made some comments. I have not incorporated any of those, and I didn't know, is this going to just be turned over to Bruce as the staff to start to kick that process off, or what's the next step as far as relative to the ordinance? Because I've asked for it to be on the agenda here and it hasn't shown up, and so I didn't know where we're going with the ordinance.
Okay. So Parks and Recs did request a copy of it since we had referenced it in our plan. So I sent them because it wasn't in there, right? It wasn't in the formal plan. So I did send Parks and Mark Berry that. I think, Bruce, maybe the question is that Mark has now had that for a month. And the question, hold on, I started some machine here. There we go. If you would reach out to Mark and, I think it would be what's next, because they were considering it. And what is their feedback on the ordinance the draft ordinance that we sent them? And I think time we get that back, then we could talk about, I'd much rather do it with Parks and Recs versus trying to push a rock.
No problem, just asking.
uphill.
Just-
No, that's fair. I think we should get an update
Yeah.
from Mark. That's a pretty straightforward question.
Yeah, so why don't I try to get some feedback from Parks and Recreation before next meeting? We'll put that item on the agenda.
Yes.
Unless we're in a joint meeting with them and we can, that's a third item for the joint Parks and Rec.
Let's we do that. Okay.
Okay, other,
Yeah, the second item I had, this is a new subject item. One of the properties that the town owns is the Joel property, also known as Birch Plain Creek property. It abuts Peconic Road and High Rock Road. And I went and looked at it today, and I'd like to share a picture of it with you and talk a little bit about an item that I noted today was that here's Peconic Road, then High Rock, and that you've got the Faith Lutheran Church of Groton here, and behind they have a big parking lot on their property. And I took my bike and I came up in here, rode to and I say, oh, there's a little path here, this access path. But you follow along here, and there's all these encampments. There's about 5 different shanty towns of 3 to 5 tents each in these different areas along this little pathway that's on the town property. Okay, we have a response. This kind of goes back to the whole stewardship issue that I look at it from as a commission here, is that we're not doing our job because we've got squatters living in tents on town property. Okay, well, one thing is that the ordinance obviously would prohibit this, but it's not clear right now as far as what the ordinance is. I don't know if these guys are, the church is feeding them or what, but they've got their laundry hanging out here. They've got, tents. They've got campfires around here. It's really, it's fairly well kept compared to other places I've seen, but I don't know if this is a social services issue or who to turn this over to. But as far as, under our stewardship responsibilities for the Conservation Commission, I just want to identify that this is the type of stuff that we're supposed to be worried about. So, and this is just as of today. I don't know how long these guys have been here, but you can kind of see from the picture right in this area, there's something, this is where their campfire is right here. Okay. But the last time, this picture is from 2015, but obviously they weren't there when the picture, in the fall when the pictures were taken after the leaves are down. But they're back here. There's child stroller, little kids and stuff, strollers and that type of stuff along the pathway here and everything. It's a family affair.
So Bruce, who would be the responsible party for squatters on town property?
There's kind of overlapping jurisdiction on that. I've seen Mark Berry intervene in situations like this. So it could be Parks and Rec. I think that would be a good start. Depending on the legality of it, possibly police too. But I think Parks and Rec and notifying Mark Berry would be a good first step.
Well, could I say it might make sense first to contact the Faith Lutheran Church, and maybe that they're allowing and or encouraging, and maybe they don't have a clear understanding of where their property boundary line is. So maybe if they want to allow those, possibly homeless people having economic shortage to live, maybe they have to move them onto their own property rather than, maybe that would be a first step, is like talk to the church, like, hey guys, are you involved in this? If so, I don't know who has that conversation, but that might be a good place to start, rather than pulling in the police and starting.
No, I wouldn't recommend doing the police as a first step. That seems a little, right. We do need to do information gathering, but again, we're a recommending body, and I think it's appropriate that that it's probably reach out to Parks and Recs. They then could talk to the Faith Lutheran Church and or determine what action would need to be taken by discussions with the town manager or whoever. Yeah, Tom?
My only issue is that Parks and Recs isn't maintaining anything on this property. There's no signage, there's no trails, there's no nothing. This is one of the areas that has fallen through the Parks and Rec gap, just like they don't have stuff at Boulder Park, they don't have stuff at Kalinowski. They are very, I'll cover the park, the stuff that I'm responsible for, where I'm putting people out, I'm mowing the trails and that type of stuff. Like over at Sparkle Creek, or Sparkle Lake, at the other end of Birch Plain here, where the town is taking it, they've got a sign up, they're mowing the thing and all that type of stuff. Parks and Recs is involved. They have no involvement at this time at this property. That's my only concern.
Well, the default would be to send it to the town manager and let him decide what to do with it.
Maybe with the recommendation that they talk to the church first,
I would send it off to either social services or the town manager, documenting that we found this and here's the problem, because it's obviously a very complex answer. That property has had a record of supposedly encampments for many, many years. Another property around the corner is called the Kanaski Elementary School. So up there on top, actually where the road is, used to be some large cliffs in there. And there were people that, I don't know if they're related family members or whatever, but they used to have encampments in there with tents and so forth. And what happens is that if there's no pressure to have trail systems in there and the public accessing, but the land just sits there, everybody sort of turns a blind eye. That doesn't make excuses for it, but that's sort of the reality of what's happened. So I agree with you guys that it's a discussion that needs to be made. And the police is one avenue, but probably I would pass it on to the town manager and let him figure out what department it ought to go to and then see where it goes from there.
Okay, well then I'll take it based on all the discussion. I really appreciate the input. I just found this afternoon around 2 o'clock when I was out there. I will get this into a PDF and then type up a little email and send it. Do you want it to, I would send it to Bruce and you can pass it up to your boss. Would that be best?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. Okay, thanks a lot. That's
All
all
right.
I had.
Thanks, Tom. All right. Okay, the next item 6, report of staff. That's back to you, Bruce.
I don't really think I have anything else to add for it. I did have some talks with Deb and John and Diane, another one of the planners in the planning department this morning about the plan, and we're going to take a good look at it and give you guys some feedback. Everybody's going to read it, and we're gonna have some meetings on it, and hopefully we can give you a lot of good input in the time frame. That's what our expectation is. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to report. Nothing new since the last time we met.
All right. With that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Nobody wants to go longer, right? All right. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Did Ann raise her hand?
She did, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's unanimous.
She's still paying attention. That's good.
She's still paying attention. Very good, Ann. So very good. Look at that. 7 o'clock, 2 hours on the button. Very good.
Okay, all right.
Very good. All right, folks. We'll see you next month unless something pops up early. But
All right,
thank you all. Have a great evening.
Have a great
all right,
evening.
take
everyone.
care. And stay safe in the storm tomorrow. Big storm.
Storm? Oh.
Yeah, the tropical storm's coming tomorrow. Hopefully.
Oh, I
we
thought
need
that was
rain.
another day. This Tuesday?
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Yeah.
Now
Okay.
they've upgraded the winds too, a little faster maybe. So we'll see.
It'll be fine. Maybe it'll blow the virus away.
Maybe. All right. Bye. Bye.
Bye.